Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and today I am pleased to welcome Captain Kelly Gordon. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
Great. It's coming to the end of the summer. How is the season? You're over in the U.S., aren't you?
I am. I'm in the upper Midwest. I'm actually in Chicago, so I've been spending a lot of time on the Great Lakes. This is my second season on the Great Lakes, so it's been a bit of a change of pace. Starting to get a little bit chilly. I had to put some socks on the other day, so whenever that happens, I know it's time to start thinking about putting the boat away and going south.
Well, I assume that, yeah, September in Chicago, you're looking towards fall.
Yep, we are.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up and sort of what were your goals when you were a kid? Because we all have sort of dreams and aspirations as a child. And to be honest, not a lot of women have dreams and aspirations of becoming a captain. So take us through that.
I was I grew up the furthest away from anything yachting. I actually grew up about 3 hours south of Chicago, in a really small farming community, just about an hour north of Indianapolis in Indiana, and hadn't left the state of Indiana or flown on a plane or seen the ocean until I was 23 years old. And I had always wanted to be a veterinarian, and so I had worked through undergrad, got my bachelor's in chemistry, and was on my way to vet school. And as I graduated, my sister, for a graduation present, actually took me to Cancun. So I did all three things at once. I flew, I saw the ocean, and I left the country on that trip. And I've always loved the water, being around the lakes and the rivers and stuff in Indiana. And then I wound up, so when I saw the ocean, of course, I was just in awe. And then I wound up not going to vet school. And I said, well, what are you going to do with a bachelor's in chemistry? And I said, well, I'll get my master's in chemistry. So I went out to North Carolina and went to grad school at UNC Wilmington. And then I found the ocean again and a lack of snow. And I liked it, and I stayed. And I actually took a teaching job at a local college, and it was through a student of mine, non-traditional. She was a little bit older and going back for her second career, and she said to me, she could tell that I wasn't from the area. She said to me, she said, well, why don't you go out with me? And I said, well, I will after grades are turned in, so it's not a conflict. We went to this party on a yacht, and I didn't even really know what a yacht was. I mean, I knew, but I didn't, and it just took off from there.
So when you first got into yachting, what position did you take?
Well, so it was that boat that I went to the party on, where I didn't know a soul but her. And I've always had kind of a take charge kind of personality. And when I walked on that boat, they were doing a wedding reception, and I noticed it was owner operated. And I noticed that the captain was just really stressed out. And so I introduced myself and I said, hey, can I do something to help? And he's like, yeah, do this, 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 and this. And so I went from never having stepped on foot on a yacht to seeing a yacht to all of a sudden now I'm on this boat, not knowing a soul, but kind of directing what we're going to put where and how we're going to do it and how we're going to set it up. So I mean, I was literally thrown in as soon as I stepped foot on it. And after the trip, we got to talking, and he's like, well, I want to start a charter company. And I was like, oh, well, I can help you with that. I didn't know anything. So since that boat was owner operated, and I helped him start a charter company, I really had to take on every position. So I had to be able to run the interior. I had to be able to do exterior work. And he did a lot of, as an owner operator, he did a lot of engineering, but he also dragged me down into the engine room and said, hey, if you're going to be on the boat, you need to know how these things work. So fortunately, I've been a little bit of everywhere. I've been interior, exterior, I've been in the engine room. And I think that was the greatest way for me to have learned, because now as a captain, I can jump in anywhere I need to jump in and help out. But my personality, though, led me to want to operate the vessel and ultimately be a captain. And so he kind of took me under his wing. He was my mentor. He took me under his wing, and it just took off.
It's interesting that you say that because in all the female captain interviews that I have done, It seems there has always been a bit of a roundabout way towards being a captain, and they have literally worked every aspect of the ship,
Yep.
the vessel, up to being a captain. They usually come with quite an education from before that has nothing to do with yachting. And they also have a mentor that takes them in hand and says, this is how it is done, and it's shown right from ground all the way up to the captain's chair.
Yeah, yeah. I've noticed the same thing too. And it's funny, people giggle now and they're like, how does a master's in chemistry, help with captaining? And I'm like, well, I guess I know a lot about water through chemistry. And I giggle and I'm like, it doesn't. There's no, there's no anything that relates. It's just my roundabout way of how I got here. And yeah, as far as my mentor, I was telling someone the other day, they asked me what kind of advice I had for young female deck crew trying to move up or even just be on the deck and run the deck. And I said the big thing was to find a mentor. I mean, and he was huge and he still is, I mean, I keep in touch with him and to this day, and we talk about what's new and what's going on, and and I still bat ideas across him. What do you think about me doing this? What do you think about me doing that? I think you're right. Women do have a mentor, and I think it's so important. I wouldn't be where I am now. He says, no, I gave you the tools and you utilized them. And I'm just like, but had you not given me those tools, I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for him.
Why do you think there's so few female captains in the industry?
I think they're afraid. They're a little bit intimidated. Um, I do think that the reason that the remark that I made about running a motor yacht was that it was very much like running a tractor. And that's because I grew up on the farm. So I'm used to heavy equipment, and I've always had an aptitude for hand-eye coordination and that kind of thing. And so for me, it was the challenge, and it was I've always welcomed a challenge. But to answer your question, I don't know why there's so many women in this industry, and especially as a captain. I can only think that maybe they're slightly intimidated. Maybe they're afraid to try to enter into the industry when it's largely male dominated. Having said that, all of my male co-captain colleagues, whatever you want to call them, friends, have been my biggest cheerleaders and my biggest support. They're great. I haven't really run into maybe one that I know that wasn't thrilled about a female in the helm chair, but he was honest about it and we giggled about it and we're still friends to this day. But I think maybe there's just a little bit of intimidation. They don't know how to break into this industry with it being largely male dominated.
One thing that you raised is that when you were coming up, and what put you in the captain's chair, is that you actually learned everything about the yacht. How many male captains do you know that have actually done the interior as well as all of the other things? I mean, that's not very common. They start off as deck or they go to engineer and they become a captain. So there is something that is missing in their education on their path to captain.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, that's the flip side of it. So there's not many female captains, there's not many female deck, just like there's not many male interior. So why is that? Why do we have these gender roles, so to speak, where the woman's supposed to be running the interior of the boat and the man's supposed to be running the exterior of the boat? So you're right. Just like there's not many women on deck, there's not many men that can run the interior. But yeah, you're right, as far as female captains being able to be multifaceted in their roles. I mean, yeah, I can come on into the interior and I can help you get ready just as well as I can be on the outside, helping you get the boat scrubbed down and ready to go.
Do you feel that makes you a better captain?
Yeah, I've always felt that you should know a little bit about everything with what's going on your boat. Um, Obviously, you're not going to be uh, a specialist in the exterior. You're not going to be a specialist on the interior and a specialist in the engine room. You just can't be an expert in all those areas. You know, my role is captaining the boat and making sure that it's safely operated and making sure that I have a sound navigational plan and I get us from point A to point B, my crew safe and my vessel safe. That's my specialty. But I think that it's really important to be able to pick up, as a captain, the way that I lead is to be able to pick up the slack. Know that if my interior crew's struggling, that I need to jump in and help them, but be able to, because there's nothing worse than somebody trying to jump in and help you and they mess it up, or they end up slowing you down because they don't know what they're doing or how to do it. So I think it's really important to be able to do a little bit of every role. And I like my crew to be like that too. You know, one of my mate that I have working with me now, she does interior and exterior. And I like that. And I think it's really important because let's say she were to move on to a boat and she was largely just deck, she could be able to jump on into the interior and get the interior ready. So I really like having that versatility, and I like my crew to be able to do that as well.
Something that you mentioned was that, you know, you had a lot of support from your guy colleagues, but there was one possible that you didn't have that support from. And it's something that I'm always interested in delving into for those that are interested, for women that are interested in becoming a captain. How do you deal with those people that make you or try to make you think that you're not up to the job?
Um, you know, he started off as a friend of mine. I met him and he didn't know that I was a captain, and it took a little while before he found out that I was. And I could just kind of tell by the look on his face that he wasn't thrilled with it. And I just knew his personality. He was a little bit more traditional. And so I just asked him, I was like, you don't really dig me being a captain, you know, a female captain, do you? And he's like, no, I don't think that, I think it's for men. I don't think women have any role as a captain. And so I giggled and I laughed at him. He giggled too. We remained friends. But I think it's, how do you deal with that? I think it's how you approach them. I think if you come in being ultra feminist, slinging elbows, and I am woman, hear me roar, that's not attractive to anyone, male or female. So, you know, I think if you approach this industry as, and being willing to carry your own weight, and walking with that level of confidence, and as you command that respect, as you walk with that level of confidence, you're going to command that respect. But you certainly don't want to come in, like I said, slinging elbows and acting as an ultra feminist. So I think it's just largely how you approach them is how they're going to receive you.
Do you find that you have to have a bit of a tougher skin?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess, you know, there are some of the people that I've interviewed, or female captains that I've interviewed, they've said that, you know, you have to pick and choose your battles because there's always going to be a battle, but you've got to pick and choose the ones that are worth fighting. Have you found that in your career?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's frustrating sometimes when I come to a new port and maybe the dock master will walk up and have a question about the boat or something like that, and they'll walk up and say to me, "Can I speak to your captain?" and I just smile and I say, "Well, I am." And they're still taken aback, and it takes them a second to regroup and go, "Oh, okay." You know, I've learned to just leave that battle alone. I just smile and grin on the inside, you know, and then yes. So you have to pick your battles.
Do you find that, you know, as a woman climbing up through the ranks, have you ever found that you've been sexually harassed or been the brunt of jokes or sexist jokes? And has it bothered you? Have you let that roll off your back and just move through it?
Oh, that's a tough one. Um, there's been some slight remarks, And I'm really quick to nip them in the bud so that it doesn't escalate any further. And if I felt that it would, and this has been so few and far between, if it would, I would just remove myself from the situation, you know. But again, I think it's how you present yourself, you know. So few and far between. And like I said, I just nip it in the bud so early on that, you know, that's it. End of story.
Is there any advice that you think you could have used as a youngster coming up, and if in your early 20s? Is there any advice that you think you could give to those out there that are dreaming of becoming a captain and taking that seat as a woman?
Yes. I hit on one of those pieces of advice already, and that was to find a mentor. And when I say find one, it normally happens pretty organically. It's not one of those things where you just go out looking and you see, okay, I'm going to pick that guy right there to be my mentor. You end up finding someone that you just mesh really well with, and someone that wants to take you under their wing, and you feel comfortable with them. So give it time. You will find that mentor, but be on the lookout for them. Don't quit. You got to keep pushing. When you feel like you're coming to the dock and all the guys come out to watch you dock and they don't come out to watch a guy dock, you've got all these eyeballs on you, and you feel like, in a way, they're just coming out to watch me mess up. And you got to learn, don't give up. You got to persevere. You got to keep pushing on. And the other piece of advice that I have is, you know what you know. Be confident in what you know. As I was learning and growing, and this is probably part of the learning and growing process, but you second guess yourself with a lot of choices that you want to make. And I finally had to get to a point where I stopped. You know what you know. Be confident in your ability. Yes, remain confident. Find a mentor and don't give up. Keep pushing.
Are you open to people getting a hold of you and asking questions and getting your advice?
100%, 1,000%. And that probably goes back to my days as a college professor. Is I love to teach. I love to share what I know. I love to help. My mate now makes jokes about what the daily lesson is, because I didn't realize that I was always trying to share with her and teach her. So now we just joke about what the daily lesson is, and now she'll be like, "Oh, there hasn't been a daily lesson in a couple days. What's going on?" So yeah, 100%. I love to talk if it isn't obvious. I love to teach. I love to share. I'm the biggest proponent of women in this industry. So yes, yes, and yes.
Wonderful. Well, we'll make sure to provide that information underneath this interview. So if anybody is looking to find someone to ask these questions of and get a little bit of advice, they'll be able to get a hold of you and chat.
Good.
You know what, Captain Kelly Gordon, thank you ever so much for your time. We really do appreciate it, and you're welcome to come back anytime to share some wisdom.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. It was so good to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity for the interview.
No worries. Once again, you've been watching another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I have been your host. Tune in again for another episode.